But let's take a look first at the syllabus, right? So I have, I'll post this later on the Google Classroom so you can read everything. I just have a grading scheme, a little introduction to the course, right? So in this course, you will be given assignments. We'll do quizzes every now and then. And at the very end of the course, we'll have a final exam, okay? So you guys will be all prepared and we'll study for that. But let's get to the lesson plan now, okay? So today we're going to be starting with lesson 6, Boolean values, okay? And I believe Mr. Alon's class, you guys have done the first 4 lessons already, but Mr. Alon taught it, right? So you guys already learned about strings. You guys have already learned about number types, and you've learned about some methods and operators that we can do on strings and number types, right? Give me a thumbs up if that's true. Perfect, good, very good. Okay, so we'll be continuing right from Boolean values then, which you guys should not have covered yet, okay? Are there any questions so far? Is anyone confused? No, good, okay. So let's go, without further ado, let's start the lesson, okay? Okay, now, today we're gonna be taking a look at a new type, okay? So let's recap the types that we have looked at so far, right? So I believe you guys have looked at strings and you guys have looked at numbers. More specifically, you guys have looked at ints and floats, right? So you guys know, for example, a string, I can have a variable called name, and I can assign it in quotation marks, my name, Abilas, right? And this is a string variable, right? And then if I want a number variable, I can have something called age, and I can put 30, right? So here I have 2 different variables. My first one is a string, and my second one is a number, right? My name variable is a string with my name in it, and the age variable is a number or an integer, in this case, with the value 30 in it, right? Maybe some people like to say their exact age. Maybe they'll be 30 and a half, right? If it's my birthday in 6 months, then I can write 30.5. And this would be a floating number type, right? It would have a decimal, right? Which ints don't contain. So these are the types that we've gone through so far. And we also know that with each type, we have our own special operators and methods, right? So operators are actions that we can perform on these types, right? So for example, I've written some operators for the number type that we can do for both ints and floats, right? We can add ints together, we can subtract them, we can multiply them, we can divide them. So these are some operators we can do on all number types. Can anyone here tell me some operators that we can do on string types? Yes, Sarah?
Well, one I think you can do is like add 2 strings together.
Yes, right? Yes, good, very good. That's called actually, it's called the concatenation operator, right? So concatenation just means adding 2 things together, right? So which is exactly what you said. So that's an operator, right? Another operator we can have. Yes, Ethan, I see your hand up.
Maybe give the string a name.
Yes, we can give the string the name. So I think you're talking about, are you talking about the variable here? The variable name?
I'm not sure. I just thought you could give strings names as well.
You can, right? So you can. So in this case, I've called my string, I've called it name, right? But for example, if I want to have a string animal, and I want to specify an animal, I could maybe make that lion, right? And I have a new string and it's named animal and it's equal to lion, right? So that's just, it comes as a normal part of assigning variables, right? Yes, variables are not operators. Another operator we can do on string is something called the repetition operator. And it works just like multiplication. Here, I'll actually write. It works just like multiplication, right? So if I take, maybe I'll have a new variable name, and let's call it name2 is equal to name, which you've already said is equal to Abilas, my name, and I could say times 5. Does anyone know what the value of name2 is going to be? Let's try to get somebody different. Okay, let's go with Ethan. Yes, Ethan.
Would it be like Abidas, 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 Abidas?
Yes, exactly. It would be the value in name repeated 5 times, right? Very good. So we would have, if I print out name2, if I go ahead and I print name2, the value I would see would be Abilas, Abilas, and I would have it 5 times. Let's just pretend I wrote it 5 times. Okay, so that's some operators that we can use on strings. Okay, now we also have methods for each of these types, right? We also have special methods that only strings can use and special methods that only numbers can use, right? An example of some methods that we can use on string is the capitalize method, right? The capitalize method. And this would just capitalize the first letter of a string. So as you can see here, in my name variable here, I did not capitalize the first letter of my name, right? So if I do name dot capitalize, it'll automatically capitalize the first letter, okay? And it'll make it a capital A. Now, can anyone tell me some methods that we can only use on numbers? Sarah, you have your hand up?
Well, maybe like dividing and subtracting and stuff.
Okay, so see that those actually do fall into operators, right? So those are some operators that we can do on numbers. Methods are a little bit different. Okay, so Ryan, you have your hand up.
Yep, I remember that there's a method for like to identify if a number is an integer.
Yes, right. That's called, I believe, the isInt method. And we can use the isInt method. And in this, we put in a number type. So we can put either a floating number or an integer number. And this method will tell us if it's an integer. If we put a floating number in there like 34.4, this will be false. Okay. And yes, Sarah, you have your hand up.
Well, I tried the like name2 equals name times 5, and like it totally didn't work.
So did you put what did you use for times? Did you use X or did you use the star on your keyboard? So I'm gonna send you guys a link in chat. Actually, it's going to be
Okay,
a replit. It works very good, right? So what we'll do is I'm gonna send you guys a link in chat. It's going to be a replit link. Okay. So I want everyone to join. I think everyone should have an account. If you don't, please try joining. Perfect. Yes, I see. Okay, so I see some of you guys are trying some code. So for now, only I'm going to write, but did everyone manage to, did everyone get the link? Yes, Sarah?
so like, is it okay if I do it on my like own Replit project?
Yeah, you can. That's no problem. You can do it on your own. And then if you have any questions, you can send me your link and I can join and I can see what's wrong. Okay. I've just sent this Replit project so that you guys can see some of the things that I'm typing. So it's a good idea if you join that one too, just so you can see some of the examples I'm showing.
Okay, so I already like opened it up.
Good. Very good. Okay. So we won't use it yet. So I just sent the link. Everyone please join. Okay, so let's go back to the lesson. Okay, but good. We have some methods for strings. We have some methods for numbers. We have some operators for both types. Very good, right? Now, we are going to be learning about a new type, okay? And that type is Booleans. It's a funny name. It's a funny name, but Booleans are actually one of the most important types in programming. And you guys are going to see that we're going to use Booleans a lot down the line with more complex things we're going to learn, like if statements and while loops and such, okay? Now, does anyone know what Booleans are? Okay, we'll go with Ethan.
I think Booleans are like yes or no questions. Like if you ask the computer something, it will respond like either true or false.
Very good. Yeah. So that's almost exactly what Booleans are, right? And it's a great way to think about it. Booleans are essentially yes or no questions, or true or false questions. But the important thing to note there is that we have exactly two values, right? We have exactly two values. And that is the crux of what a Boolean is. A Boolean is a form of data with only two possible values. Okay, so that could be yes or no, true or false, 0 or 1. These are all in a way considered Booleans, right? Now, in Python, Booleans always evaluate to true or false. Okay, and that's much different than strings and ints, right? Because when you think about strings, we can put any number of letters between two quotation marks, or any of the 26 letters, any combination we can make between two quotation marks, and we have a different string. And for numbers, we can put any number we want, negative or positive, in an int or a float. There is a upper and lower limit for how big the numbers can be, but we'll get to that later, right? So ints and strings, they can hold so many values, but Booleans can only hold two, true or false, right? So let's take a look at an example, okay? Can you guys go to the Replit board? Is there anyone here that hasn't joined yet or has trouble joining? Yes, Sarah, you have your hand up? No, okay, sorry. Okay, so we have some students that have trouble joining. Let's see, because I know those of you from Mr. Alon's class have a Replit account. Okay, so if everyone can't join, then I will just share my screen. Okay, now only, let me send the link out one more time. All right. So is there, I know one student isn't in, is there anyone else that's not in the Replit yet? Okay, there we go, I see you now. Anyone else not in the Replit? Give me a hands up if you still need help. All right, good. Okay, so I'm gonna type here for now. If I need somebody else to type here, only type if I tell you to. Otherwise, no one type in the console yet. Okay. Okay, so let's start with some examples. Okay, let's start with some examples. Now we're gonna start off with some very simple examples. Okay, nothing complicated. We're only gonna assign the values true or false. Okay, so for example, this is how I would assign a Boolean, right? So I could say, is it cold outside, right? So maybe my variable name is it cold? And I can say that's equal to true, okay? Because it is pretty cold outside nowadays. And then if I print the value of is it cold, and I run this program, I'll get true, right? Very simple, because I assigned the value true to is it cold. I print is it cold and it's true. I can make the print statement a little more informative maybe. Maybe I can write it is cold. And then if I run this, as you can see on the console, it says it is cold, true, right? It is cold, true. So it's very simple, right? It is cold, true or false, right? So let's have a little bit more of a complicated example here, okay? So let's say, let's ask about my location, okay? So print, this will be a true or false question. I'll say my location in Canada, location is Canada. My location is Canada, so that Boolean is going to be a true value. Location is Brazil. Well, that's false. I'm not in Brazil, so I'm going to write false for that, right? And then I can print out two statements here. I can print Mr. Abilas lives in Canada, right? And then I can put the value of location is Canada right here. And then I can also print, I'm just going to copy this here. Mr. Abilas lives in Brazil. And then the value I'm going to have here is lives in Brazil. And now if I run this, I'm going to have true or false. Mr. Abilas lives in Canada, true. Mr. Abilas lives in Brazil, false. Right, so very simple so far, nothing too complex. Does everyone understand so far?
Yeah.
Good, good, okay, perfect. Let's get down, let's make it a little bit harder. Okay, so these are fairly simple examples. Output was very simple. Now, let's take a look at some Boolean operators. Okay, so take a look at my iPad screen again. Okay, so let me write down the definition here of Booleans. So Booleans are a data type that hold one of two possible values. Okay, and of course, Python Booleans in Python evaluate to true or false. Okay, to true or false. Okay, now let's take a look at some operators for Boolean types. Does anyone know any operators for Boolean types? Yes, Sarah?
I think that there might be and, or not.
Very good. Okay, so those, very good. So those are operators that we're going to be looking at next class, but those are good. Those are very good, right? There's going to be and, or, and not. Okay, very good. So these are specific type of operators that we would use on Boolean values. Now we'll get to more about what this means next class. Okay, this class, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on operators that evaluate to a Boolean value. Now, what does that mean, right? What these operators that I'm talking about do is they take in two inputs, and then when we run the operator, they'll give us a Boolean value, okay? These are called comparison operators. Okay, so let's write that down, comparison operators. And you guys have known this because you guys have definitely studied these in school before. You just might not recognize it immediately. Does anyone know any comparison operators? Okay, let's, now you guys are answering most of the questions. Let's try to get someone else. Does anyone else know? How about you, David? Do you know any comparison operators?
No, I kind of forgot.
Okay, that's fine. So okay, we'll go with Ethan this time.
Greater than, equal to, I mean, wait, greater than, equal to, less than, or equal to, less than. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so there we go. Ethan gave us some comparison operators, right? And someone asked me if it's the math ones. Yes, they are the math ones, but they can be used in programming too, right? So let's start with just two of them. Let's start with the greater than operator. And let's start with the less than operator. These operators are very simple, and I know you guys have probably studied them in school already during math, right? 1 sec, some students have a question. Yes, those are the ones. Okay, so you guys have definitely studied these in math before, right? So they're very simple. What we know for these operators is there's going to be a number on either side of them, right? So let's take a look at the greater than operator. Maybe we can have something like 5 greater than 3, right? Which is true. 5 is definitely greater than 3. And if you take a look at the less one, we can have something like 2 is less than 9, right? Now, both of these statements are true, right? Both of these are true. We can use these for Booleans as well. Well, how? Imagine instead if I put 5 is greater than 6. 5 is definitely not greater than 6, right? 6 is a bigger number. So this is a wrong statement, right? But if I assign this to a Boolean variable, this will just evaluate to false. Okay, this will evaluate to false. So I want you guys to take a look at the screen again. Take a look at the replet again. Okay, so let's get rid of all of this. And I'm going to make some new variables, and I'm going to call greater than and less than. Okay, actually, first we'll start with some number 1 is equal to 5. Number 2 is equal to 9. Okay, Sarah, you have your hand up, or was that from before?
Before.
Oh, that's from before. Okay, so I have two numbers here, 5 and 9. So let's print out some Boolean statements. Okay, so first we'll do greater than is equal to number 1 greater than number 2. Next we'll do less than. We'll do number 1 less than number 2. Okay, and then we'll do print the greater than. We'll say number 1 is greater than number 2, right? And we'll write here the greater than variable which we have. We'll copy that over, and this time we'll say number 1 is less than number 2, and we'll have the less than variable here. Now, does anyone have any guesses as to what the output is going to be? We have Sarah. Okay, we'll go with Sarah. Sarah, yes. What do you think the output's going to be?
Well, for the first print statement, the output is definitely going to be number 1 is greater than number 2, colon, and then it's definitely false because 5 is not greater than 9, and then for the second print statement, it says number 1 is less than number 2, and then colon, and then it's definitely true.
Very good. So let's run it. Let's see if Sarah's correct. I have a feeling she is. Very good, right? So it's exactly what Sarah said. We say number 1 is greater than number 2, which is false, right? So if we look at line number 6, for the greater than variable, we assigned number 1 is greater than number 2, and Python has evaluated that as a false statement. And so it's put the value false into greater than. Yes, Ethan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I have to basically just notice that I cannot see what you're typing.
Okay, so Ethan, have you joined the replet that I sent in the chat?
Yeah.
Let me send it. You have?
Yeah,
I can't see it either.
but I'm like in my separate replit or something.
Okay. Who here can't see what I'm typing?
Me.
Okay, so David can't. Ethan can. Ryan, can you see what I'm typing?
Yeah, but like I was just shaking my head for saying that, like, I can't see why you're typing.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna send the link one more time. Ethan and David, can you guys try joining these replets? I just want to see. Try clicking that link again. Maybe you guys just went to the replet.com
Oh.
or something.
I see it.
You see it? Okay, good. And then how about David? Do you see it?
I still can't see it.
Even when you click the new link that I sent you?
Yep.
Okay. That's not good. What do you see instead?
Oh wait, no, I think I can see it now.
Okay, you can see it. So do you see the output? Do you see the code there?
Yes,
Where we
I
have
do.
the greater than less than?
Everything.
Okay, good. Okay. Now make sure you guys don't type in here unless I tell someone to type, okay? But as we were saying, oops. Oh, what happened? Did someone delete the less than? Make sure you guys don't type unless oh, what happened? But remember guys, don't type unless I tell you to type, okay? Oh, okay, there we go. So we've switched the order of the statements, but everything is still correct. Okay, what happened here? Okay, so as we can see, if we take a look at greater than, it says number 1 is greater than number 2, which we know is false. So Python evaluates these statements for us using the comparison operators, right? So it evaluates it and it will automatically assign false into greater than, okay? Hey guys, remember, don't type in the editor unless I tell you guys to, okay? And then for the second variable, less than, we see that number 1, which is 5, is less than number 2. So that's a true statement. Python again evaluates this using the comparison operator, and it assigns it to the less than variable, right? So now we have greater than, the value will be true, and less than, the value will be false. And if I run this program again, as you can see, line number 9 will print the first statement, and we get that less than is true. Line number 10 prints the second statement, and we get that greater than is false. Okay. Does this make sense so far, everybody? Give me a thumbs
Yep.
up if it makes sense.
Yes.
Good. Good. Okay. And if anyone has any questions, just you can put your hand up to ask me. Okay. Good. So no one has any questions. Okay. So doing good so far, but let's make this program a little better, right? So I'm gonna ask someone for help here, but right now, can I put you guys into breakout rooms? Actually, for this one, we'll keep it simple. Okay, we'll keep it simple for this one. What I want someone here to do, right? Right now, this program, we have a variable called number 1 and number 2, right? Which has the value 5 and 9. But right now, it's not a very useful program because this program will always check if 5 is bigger than 9 or 5 is less than 9. We want to change this program so maybe a user can come and put in a number for number 1 and put a second number for number 2. And then using our program, they can check whether number 1 is less than or greater than number 2. Okay. Do we have any volunteers that want to code on the replet and change this? Now, I know Sarah has her hand raised, but Sarah, you've been answering a lot of questions today. Ethan as well.
It seems to be like the replet is not refreshing anymore. So again, it's like pausing at the exact same like.
So we haven't typed anything yet. I'm going to type something now.
Oh,
Okay.
Do you see it? Do you see what I just typed?
no.
You don't see the hello?
Yeah, me either. I don't see it either.
Yeah, it just like freezes and like it freezes at that time. So I could see what you were typing, but I can't
I
see
see.
what you typed after. Is
For
it
Okay,
me, for me,
okay, so-
it's I can't see anything. I only can see the part where you typed it up to print parentheses num1 is greater than num2.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen then. So for whoever can't see, you guys can see, but we'll figure this out hopefully, because I do want you guys coding on the replet as well. Okay, so I've shared this part of my screen. Okay, but let's get back to the matter of hand. I guess David can't, David and Ethan can't, right? But any other volunteers? I know Sarah was a volunteer. How about Alan or Samson? You guys have been quiet.
Sure, I guess. Do I get to code onto your thingy?
Yeah, on my replet. So right now, as you can see, we have number 1 is equal to 5 and number 2 is equal to 9. I want you to change it so that the user inputs their own value. Okay, good. Please input. Good. So right now, Alan he's using the input function in Python, and he's asking the user to input a random number for number 1. So instead of saying number 1 is equal to 5, the user will now put in a number. Okay, now Alan's using if statements. Now, Alan, in the spirit of this, let's not use in if statements. Let's just stick to the original prints. You can just print less than or greater than, so you can just do what I did, where it's number 1 is less than number 2, and then you can print the value of less than or greater than. So if it's true or false, like that. I think your program's basically done. You can just copy and paste that at the end instead.
Does it say paste? Never mind. Control-V. Okay. Print.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, 1 sec. Let me delete this. Okay, now go ahead. Yeah, continue. Okay, let me delete. Yeah, so we're good. So let me delete those 2, and then let me move these 2 here. We'll move it here. And then we could just delete my old. Okay. Okay, so let's try running this. Oh, okay, yours are capital, mine are small. So let's rename them. There we go. Let's try running this. Okay, there we go. It says true or false. Please input a random number. So let's see if Alan's program works. I'm going to put in 7. And then I'm going to put another number. I'm going to put in 4. Now we have number 1 is less than number 2. We have false, right? And that's good because 7 is not less than 4. Number 2 is great. Number 1 is greater than number 2 is true, right? So this is now a much more useful program because now the program lets the user input 2 numbers and they'll say which one's greater, which one's smaller, right? So these are some of the useful things that we can do with Booleans, right? And we're only just touching the surface. Booleans get much more useful as we go on, okay? So we know we've done some comparison operators. Now I'm gonna ask you guys a question, okay? Keep looking at the replet here. I'm gonna ask you guys a question, okay? For number 1, instead of asking the user to input a number, I'm going to give a random number and I'm just gonna put in 30, okay? And then for number 2, I'm gonna say, please input a random number. I'm gonna leave it there, okay? I'm gonna change my output and I'm gonna print and say your number is greater than my number. So the user in this program right now, what's gonna happen is he or she is going to input a number, right? So here, let me fix up the program. Number 2 greater than number 1. Okay, so what's gonna happen when I run this program is you're gonna see your number is greater than my number, and then we're gonna have the greater than variable. The greater than variable will check if the number that the user put in is bigger than the number that I have set here. Now remember, the user doesn't know what number I have, right? So I'm gonna stop this and run again. And it says, please enter a random number. So I'm gonna end 24. No, hey, oh, is someone else typing here? Make sure no one else types, okay? So only me for now. So I'm gonna enter a random number. I'm gonna put 24. All right, see, now there we go. We have our first error, right? First error, and let's see what happened, right? So I have a number 1, I have 30. The user has inputted something as well. They input a number, I put in a number, right? I put 24, but I'm getting an error here. Does anyone know what just happened? Yes, Ethan, you have your hand up?
Because their number is not greater than 30.
Right, but then my program should have just said false, right? It should say your number is greater than my number, and it should have printed false, but instead it threw an error.
So
Yes,
I
Sarah?
think I have an idea.
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure if it'll work, but I think it's a very good one. So, like in number 2, I think that whenever you ask the user to input something, it just like puts it as a string. And
Very
this
good.
one is supposed to be an integer, so you're supposed to turn it into an integer by doing like first you put int at the beginning, then you do the
Very good.
parentheses around the whole thing.
Good, good, very good. Okay, so Sarah got it. So what happened was when the user enters a number, we treat that number as a string, right? It's not a number. Any input that the user passes through is a string, right? Because we don't know what the user is passing through. So we can't convert it to a number. The user could put in, they could be confused and put in their name. So Python, if it tries converting their name to a number, program will throw an error. So anything that the user puts will be treated as a string, right? Now we're going to assume that the user is smart and follow our instructions and they put a random number in, okay? And because we're assuming that, we're just gonna convert it to int straight off the bat. And then now we should be able to compare, right? So if I put a random number again, I'm gonna put 24. It now says your number is greater than my number, false, because 24 is not greater than 30. If I run this program again and I put 35, it now says your number is greater than my number, true, right? So we just had to make sure that the types match, and that's important too for this comparison function. Okay, does everyone understand so far? Very good. Okay, so I'm going to share my iPad screen again. Let me stop share here. Let me share my screen and my iPad. Okay, so we've learned these two basic operators. We've learned greater than or less than. Okay, there's some other operators that we can take a look at here, and I think Ethan actually mentioned all of them. Ethan mentioned all of them, but let's take a look. So we'll look at more comparison operators. We also have the greater than or equal to operator. Okay, now this is a very useful operator. This is greater than or equal to, so that or there is very important. Okay, we also, and we'll get to that in a bit. Let me just finish writing all the operators. We have a less than or equal to, right? This works similar to greater than or equal to, but it's less than. And then finally, we have an equals operator, equals to operator. Okay, so there's 3 new comparison operators. Now, does anyone know here, can anyone expand on any of these, on which each of these operators do? Let's go with someone different again. Okay, Ryan, how about you?
So basically, it compares two numbers, and when a number is greater than the other number or equal to, you can put that sign, and it same goes for the less than, and the equals to is when a number is even, like with the other number.
Yes. Okay. So Ryan gave us the math definition, more or less, right? So that's what we kind of do for math. We'd only put these signs if the number on the left, which goes here, is greater than or equal to the number on the right, right? So I could put something like 5 is greater than or equal to 5. right? Because even though 5 is not greater than 5, it's equal to, right? And this operator here is greater than or equal to. And then for this bottom, for example, I could put 4 here and 4 here, because even though 4 is not less than 4, it's equal to 4. And remember, it's less than or equal to. And then finally, the last operator is just equals to. And that just checks if two values are exactly equal, right? Exactly equal. And so for each of these, they have a math definition, but if the wrong value comes, for example, maybe we have 4 is greater than equal to 5, this will return false as a Boolean value, right? If we assign this to a Boolean variable, it's going to return false. Okay. And the same thing for the less than or equal to and the equal to, and then the equals to variable. In fact, you guys are going to use this equals to variable quite a bit, right? So you'll have 3 equals 5. Well, that's false. Okay, and this first one's also false. Okay, there's one more operator that we're going to look at that we'll take a look at next class, which is the not operator. Okay, which I believe Ethan mentioned as well, but we'll take a look at that next class. Okay. It's going good so far. So I think what we'll do next is we'll take a look at a new function. It's a new method. Okay, and it's called the bool method, or the bool function. Does anyone know what this method does? Okay, we have Sarah. Yes, Sarah?
Well, so I think what it does is like it takes something like, for example, 3 equals 2, and then like if the statement is true, it outputs the Boolean true. If the statement is false, it outputs false.
Good, right? That is in a sense.
Gotta print it.
Yes, right. So that's good. That is in a sense what the bool method does. Now, we might be thinking, wait a minute, we can already do that without the bool method, right? I can just make a new variable. Say, is it cold? And then maybe I can say that's equal to the current temperature. Maybe I have a current temperature variable. Is less than a threshold, right? So let's say it's only cold when it's less than 0 degrees Celsius. So if the current temp is less than 0, then is it cold will be true. And if it's greater than 0, it'll be false, right? So we can already do that. Yes, Sarah, you have your hand up?
No offense or anything, but what if a person was too lazy to do all that?
So what do you suggest instead? Do you think that the bool function would be easier?
I don't know. I just think that it might be like, you don't have to type that much stuff, but no offense.
No, you're right. We don't, right? And we'll learn that the more advanced we get in programming, the less we have to type. There's a lot of shortcuts. In general, actually, a lot of programmers, they don't like typing too much. They want to keep things short. So we could make this more concise. And as we learn more techniques and more shortcuts, we'll make everything less, right? But for now, we'll type everything out just so we learn the whole picture. Okay. Now, again, we can already do this. So if we can already do this, then what's the use of the bool method, right? The bool method is special because the bool method can convert other types, for example, string types and int types, into Boolean values. So you might be a little bit confused by that, right? Because you'd be like, how would we convert string and int to Boolean values? And that's where truthy and falsy values come into play. Okay, truthy and falsy values. Now, truthy and falsy values. What are truthy and falsy values? Well, it's just a kind of special name for true and false values. But essentially, every type has a truthy and falsy value, and we can convert every type into Boolean. Okay, and how that works is that almost everything that we put in the bool function, most things you'll find end up true. But there are a few special cases that will give you false. Let's have some guesses here, okay? If I have bool true here, what do you guys think that's going to give me? What Boolean value will that return? Do we have any guesses? Okay, we'll go with Ryan for now.
True.
Good. That's going to return true. How about if I have the bool function here with false, the string false? Does anyone know what that's going to return? Okay, we'll go with Alan. Okay, so Alan said false in chat. Now, you might think it's going to return false, but it actually won't. Oh no, sorry. It's not going to return false. Sorry. Yes, it won't return false, right? It will return true. Now this is weird, right? Why would bool of the string false return true, right? Why? Well, because the bool function, it doesn't convert strings. It doesn't just translate them to bool values, right? What the bool value does is it checks for special values. The only way a string will return false is if it's an empty string. If I pass in an empty string here, meaning a string with nothing, this will return false. Okay, so essentially, if I pass in a string into the bool function, any string that I pass in, as long as it's not empty, will be true. Now you might be thinking, what's the use of this? Why would I want to do this, right? What if you ask your user to input a message, right? And you're not sure if they inputted a message. Well, now you can use the bool function to check, because if they didn't input anything, if you didn't input anything, then in that case, it'll be false, right? But if they input even one character, then we'll get true. Now I see some questions in the chat. Someone asked, what if you put an integer? We'll get to that next. All right, let's take some guesses. If I put bool 5, what do you guys think? What do you guys think would be the output?
Definitely true.
Okay, so we'll go with Sarah. Sarah says true. Okay, so bool 5 is true. How about if I put bool -5? Does anyone know what the output is going to be? We'll go with Ethan.
Still true.
I would guess false because I mean I don't know, but I'm guessing. But like 5 is like
Okay.
positive and negative. Maybe the computer would take it as false.
Okay, so that's a good guess, but -5 actually is still true. It's still a true value. Okay. Now let's try this one. How about if we do bool 0? Any guesses to that would be? How about you, Samson?
I think it would be false.
Bool 0 is false. Okay, now we see a kind of pattern here, right? 0, when we pass 0 into the bool function, we get false. When we pass an empty string into the bool function, we also get false. So immediately, I think you guys might notice that when we pass in empty numbers like 0, which doesn't have a value, right? Because a negative value is still a value, but 0 basically means nothing, right? And then if we pass in an empty string has nothing in it, right? So when we pass in these empty values, the bool function will evaluate them to be false. Now, again, you might be wondering why it's useful, right? So we saw in the first example, we might want to check the user input. In this example, sometimes we only want to do something with a number if it's not 0. So checking bool, the value of the number, will just tell us straight, is it true? That means it's not 0. Let's do something with that number, right? Sometimes maybe we don't want to multiply two numbers together if one number is 0, right? Because 0 times anything is 0. That might destroy our whole program. So maybe we put a check in there that will only multiply those two numbers if the value passed into the bool function returns true. And if it returns true, it means that number is not 0. Does that make sense? I see some hands up. Alan and Samson, do you guys have questions, or was that just from before?
From before.
Okay, perfect. So does anyone have any questions? Everyone give me a thumbs up if you're good. A thumbs up, Ryan. Okay, David, thing. Sarah, do you have any questions? Sarah, you're muted. I can't hear you.
No question.
No questions? Okay, good, right? So those are some example of truthy and falsy values, right? And another example would, if for floats, for example, would be bool of 0.0. Okay, that's also equal to false. Okay. Now, do we have time to do a quick program? Let me run by the assignment first. So I'm going to assign you guys, give you guys an assignment. Your first assignment is going to be on Boolean. So let me go through that first. After we go to the assignment, if we have time, we'll do a quick program. Otherwise, we'll do it at the beginning of class tomorrow. Okay. So where is this? There we go. Assignment 1 Boolean. So nothing too hard. Yes, Alan, sorry, we will do partner stuff. It just looks like yeah, sorry. So that next question will be partner stuff. I don't think we have enough time, but what I'll do is that question after next class, after I recap Booleans, we'll go straight into that question, and then I can do some breakout rooms. Okay. So the next class will have a lot more breakout rooms. But let's take a look at assignment. Oh, yes, Sarah, you have a question?
So, like, for the assignment, can you, like, post it?
Yes,
somewhere?
I will. I'm going to post this on the classrooms. So I just want to quickly, there's some coding questions here. I just want to explain to you guys to make sure you don't get into any trouble when you're doing it. Anyone else have any questions? No, good. Okay, so I'll post this in the Google Classrooms. Okay, but just want to quickly go over what you guys have to do for homework. So I'm going to post this and it'll be due for next week, right? So part 1, very simple. It's just some concept questions, no coding involved. You just have to read the question and try your best to answer it.